class presentation, and then we're gonna have a panel session, so we can have some more discussion. But, so I just said, I look in, you know, getting your garden ready for spring, waking it up. Well, now we're gonna put our garden to bed in the fall. But we know from Amelia that there's a lot of things we can still do in the fall to grow. So, top 6 actions, clean up. You know, you always want to clean up. And, you know, there's a lot of things that you can just cut and leave on your garden beds, your landscaping beds, doesn't matter. Unless it's diseased plant material. That should always be taken out of your garden. Or either composted if it's a hot compost, or even if it's just, you know, throw it away. Because you don't want to keep diseased plant material around, and you don't want to reuse it without it being broken down and denatured. So, again, cleanup is really important. But leave the leaves, and I'll tell you why in a few minutes. So, talk a little bit about tool maintenance that we didn't get to in the first part. I also want to talk about a little bit about personal protective equipment and why it's so important. Again, check your irrigation system. You've had your hoses and your sprinklers out all year. They may have holes in them. Now's a good time in the winter to fix those hoses, replace or schedule and plan for replacement in the spring. Check your garden plan, your seed stash, your seed catalogs, and dream about what you can grow next year. Also, it's, you know, your garden plan is really important because it gives you an opportunity to note what worked good, what grew well, what tasted good. You know, if it was too much of a hassle, do you really want to grow it again? You know, like I said, natural selection is really key in my yard. So, and I also like, you know, I'm gonna put a plug in here for heirlooms, because, you know, heirlooms are the seed strains or varieties that are true to source, which means you can take the seeds from all your heirlooms and plant them, and you're going to get the same plant again. Varieties don't grow true to source. So, you know, I like heirlooms because I can just collect seeds, or they just regrow themselves like the tomatillos. So, and seed catalogs, oh, that's like the Sears Robot Christmas catalog, isn't it? Yeah. Okay, and then a little bit of preparing your beds for the long winters now. So getting ready for fall, again, remove the weeds. It's really important to get those seeds out of your space. The weed seeds are going to be a problem. They stay in the soil. They, you know, they're tough. So get those out. Again, do the lax mow lawn, trim garden bed edges, making sure your garden beds are, yeah, me and mowers don't do well with fence posts or garden cement blocks, you know. They always get pushed off to the side. So I always have to push them back and make sure they're ready. Now, why do we not want to rake the leaves? Leave the leaves for the bees. There's actually a lot of animals, including, you know, a lot of pollinators, bees, that use the leaves. So if you don't like leaves on your yard, you can rake them up and put them on your flower beds. You can put them on your garden, because there's, you know, little lizards and newts and insects that love that little habitat. And it's a little thing that we can do. It's an easy thing that we can do to encourage biodiversity in our yards. Again, prune all the dead, diseased branches off your trees and shrubs. And again, remove the diseased plant material out of your garden space, out of your landscape space. If you've got a lot of containers, I've got a lot of containers, I know Nick has a lot of containers, but clay pots tend to break in the winter time. I can vouch for that. So if there's any containers you have that could potentially break in the wintertime, they fill up with water, they freeze, you know what happens? Frozen water expands, they break. So put those someplace where they won't be full of water or frost damage. Again, drain out your water sources. We don't have mosquitoes in the wintertime here, but if you drain your water sources, then you don't really have to worry about them in the spring. Clean your tools and sharpen edges before storing for winter. I'm gonna take a minute and talk about tool maintenance, because how many of you have really sharp pruners or shovels? Yeah, it took me a long time to get those. And there's some really quick and easy sharpening tools you can get. I'm gonna cover this one up. This one here is my favorite. I got it at Walmart. It was under $5. It's got diamond, I don't know what it's called, diamond something, here for the sharpener. I love this. I bought extras because I love this. It's so easy to sharpen your tools, your shovels, your rakes, any sharp edge, your pruners. So I usually sharpen my pruners every time I go out and use them. Much like in the kitchen, you sharpen your knife blades before you use them so they're not dull. So sharp, clean tools is really important. Last fall, my grandson came over to work in the yard and garden. You know, strong back, he's young, he can dig all day long, thank goodness. But it was muddy, and I didn't really see him put the tools away. And I go in a couple months later, and that shovel was covered in mud. So he and I are gonna have a conversation, but you know, now's a good time to clean those tools. You know, take a wire brush, clean off all the flat sources, sharpen the edges, wipe them down. If they're rusty, wipe them down with some oil and oily rag so that you can use those tools year after year. It's really important to have nice, sharp tools. And with your pruners, sanitize them. Easy way to do that is just some bleach water. Just, you know, clean them, sharpen them, bleach water, wipe them off, dry them off, and then do a light oil, and you don't have to worry about transferring diseased particles of plant material to your next year. So quick and easy.
What type of oil would you recommend?
Cooking oil, you know, you can use motor oil, but you don't, you know, there's something on Pinterest that, you know, you take a flower pot and you put sand in it, and then you pour old motor oil in it, and you can keep your tools in that. Yeah, I don't know. I just get some, you know, cooking oil from the kitchen and wipe it down. Look, I do my cast iron pans. Figure it's good enough for my cooking pans, it's good enough for my tools. You know, just easy. So sharp edges is really important. Okay, so back to this. Start planning for your next growing season. This is why your plan is so important. It's important to write down what you grew in which bed. And again, did it do well? Do you want to move it? Yeah. You know, track your tools and track your irrigation system. Make a note of what needs to be replaced, what needs to be repaired. Let's see. Put that over there. Again, you can use this little, you can use this for your pH. You can do a quick soil test in the fall and see what needs more nitrogen. I follow Amelia and say, don't need to put a lot of nitrogen on your soil in the fall, because that encourages growth and that encourages problems with frost and freezing. But no, you know, you can put more compost in an area. If you have a bed some of my beds are empty right now. If I did a soil test, saw that they were low on nitrogen, I would probably wait until early spring. Probably, you know, it doesn't really matter, maybe a month or so before I planted, and put down fish fertilizer. I know it stinks, it smells really bad, but you know, that's a lot of nitrogen. And the label on that is 511, so it's 5 parts nitrogen, 1 part potassium, and 1 part phosphorus. So that's a good one for a kick to get nitrogen into your soil quickly. And heirloom plants are great for seed collection for next year. Okay, prepare your garden for winter, some cover crops, a little bit about that. Multiple benefits, it adds nutrients, it adds nitrogen, organic matter. You know, it's just, they're great. I can't say anything more, they're great. Amelia can go on all day about cover crops. And I love it, I'd love to talk to her about that. And again, you know, like I said, legumes, grains. Though they can be a weed if you let it go to seed. So that's why some things like the vetch, if I'm not mistaken, you should cut and take off. Instead of, and rototill in. Work in, okay, good. But the best thing is, this goes back to that no-dig garden, is you can leave the roots in the soil. So you don't even have to take it out. You can just cut and drop the vegetation on top. It's gonna decay and mulch, and then you just leave the roots there. And if they're a legume, the legume roots have root nodules on them. Oh, we got some pretty pictures here. So, and this is what I'm talking about. So bottom left photo, thank you, left. Those are root nodules. Those are nitrogen. That's nitrogen right there, folks. It's free nitrogen because it's growing on the roots. You just leave it in the soil, they'll break down, everyone's happy. Okay, oh, the Extension Service, Washington has 2, I think Oregon has 1 on cover crops. Great information available. Now, this next picture, may be hard for some people to understand and to swallow, because I was raised where you clear your yard off, you mow, you have nothing on that yard in the fall, no leaves left, not a single leaf left on the lawn. And you go into your garden and you basically strip all the vegetation off your garden beds, you cut everything back, your perennials back, and you just don't leave any material on the garden or in the yard. How many people were raised that way? Yeah, you know. This is my yard. These leaves are from a maple tree. They'll stay there until next summer. Because I leave them for the I leave them for the bees, but I also leave them because right now they're wet and mushy, you know. It takes a lot to get those up. So I'll leave those until middle of the summer, and then I'll rake them up and put them in my compost bin. And then this one here, the middle picture is a perennial bed. And I've got flowers and got some onion in there, got some leeks, some herbs, just kind of whatever is odd, needs a place to live, I'd put it in there. And my statue, that's Snaggletooth, he watches over everything, he keeps a close eye on things. But in a couple of weeks, I'll probably go through and kind of clear this out, cut back some of the dead stuff. And I'll probably just put it on the bed itself, because that's just the easiest thing to do. Don't have to haul it someplace and compost it and then forget about it. But I did want to kind of tear off of Amelia's talk about winter gardening is, this is the green plant in there is a wasabi. It's the root that you use for Japanese food, sushi, wasabi. And this is like the third plant that I've tried. The first plant I put in the greenhouse over winter, it didn't like that. No, it died. The second plant, I left it outside, but I left it outside on my back porch and under a raised flower bed or a raised garden bed. And it did pretty good. Well, my husband's here this winter and I told him that. And I said, you know, we could just leave it under the bench or put it up on the porch and leave it there. It'll be fine. Oh, no. This blue here is called a wall of water. How many of you ever heard of that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, in Eastern Washington, because they have such a short growing season, in order to get tomatoes to produce, you have to start your tomatoes in these walls of water. It's just kind of a cone shape with cylinders or, I don't know, I guess cylinders that you fill with water, and it keeps the ambient temperature at the root level or at the surface level of the plant warm, above freezing. So when we had that heavy freeze a couple weeks ago, not a thing, not even a hint of frost burn on that wasabi plant. So that's a real happy plant. And I'm happy because it's, you know, it's easy. So, that's all I have